welcome to our very tight community of charter members. I'm sure we'll have more of us join. So Hrish, the thing is, as TiE, we consistently strive to foster the journey of very innovative entrepreneurs. And we love staying ahead of the curve as part of that. One of the things, obviously, is big dark zone, as we all talked about, around Web3, the Metaverse, NFTs. I mean, there's just so much going on, and it's moving way faster than we can keep up. And we're all trying to follow this very closely, and we thought, what a great opportunity we start to take the next step in the internet's evolution, the Metaverse, to actually have a conversation with someone who's been bang smack in the middle of that space and actually shaping that. You've been doing it for a number of years, a lot longer than I knew what the Metaverse was. So it's absolutely a pleasure to have you here, Hrish. Just a quick introduction for Hrish Lotlikar, who's the co-founder and CEO of SuperWorld. Hrish is not new to either entertainment or creative or technology or investing. So, he has been a consultant, but he's also got interests in Rogue Initiative. It's Rogue Initiative Studios, a production house for Hollywood films, TV, gaming, and immersive entertainment. And so Hrish has been doing that. Hrish has been an investment banker. He's been a consultant. So he does know how to spin the story nice, so I'm pretty sure. And has also been a venture capitalist. So Hrish, we're looking forward to hearing your story.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and to meet you all. So I'm very excited to have this discussion with you, and hopefully also really get insights from all of you about what you're interested in, what you're potentially afraid of about this future space, or where you kind of see that overlap or contribution from what you're doing. I think it's a very exciting area because of the potential for all of us to kind of build together. So I'm excited to hear about all of your ideas.
Absolutely. And look, just like Sop had a question for you, I've got one that's my own question, and I'll come to that later, but I won't kick it off with that. But I really do want to unpack what you said to me earlier, Hrish, and that was for you, it's all about creating a virtual world with real world utility, which has the potential to enhance people's lives. And I will get to that, but we'll ease into it with your own story. So I want to hear your personal story and have that shared with others. What got you to think about or get to the point where you decided that you wanted to work with technology, immersive tech, Web3, cross platforms, and eventually what it is that you're doing now? What got you through to this part of your journey?
Yeah, sure. So I'll kind of walk you through very quickly kind of my background, kind of give you a sense for how we got here. So again, I was born in India. I grew up in the United States. I live very globally, so I'm a global nomad. Every year, live in different parts of the world. So for me, I love languages and cultures and people. Building SuperWorld for me is something that I've all really loved, and I've always kind of been close to my heart. So very grateful for the opportunity to build a world. Who would have thought?
And NFTs and stuff like that.
Yeah. My career has kind of taken me originally through management consulting. I worked in investment banking. I worked on Wall Street. I was at UBS and HSBC. Started off my career in real estate investment banking, of all places. It's funny how life works out. You can't connect the dots going forward, only backwards. I think Steve Jobs had said, we're doing virtual real estate now. And so I would have never thought, that we would have created that category. But I started off in the traditional real estate investment banking world, got into venture capital in New York, investing across tech and biotech. About 12 years ago, had a crazy idea, which was one of the first of my crazy ideas, which was, wouldn't it be cool to go somewhere in the emerging markets and start a venture capital fund? About 13 years ago, I got on a plane, didn't know anyone, went to Ukraine, Russia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, and Moldova. It took me about a year and a half, but I started a venture capital fund backed by Victor Pinchuk. Victor is one of the biggest investors in that part of the world. He's the guy who backs Yuri Milner at DST and a big LP in that region. He backed me in starting a fund. My pitch to Victor was, the smartest Eastern European entrepreneurs work in outsourcing for Facebook and Google. The ones that get to California could start Facebook and Google. We just have to, help them avoid the $2,000 a month lure of working in outsourcing. We got to get them out to California or somewhere else in the world, and they would start world-changing companies. He loved the idea. We started a fund there and invested in about 25 companies in the region. Preply is one of our companies, or the largest online tutoring marketplace in the world. Promo Republic is one of our companies. And then I did the same thing in Belarus, on the board of Tech Minsk, which is backed by the US State Department and Google. The company that Facebook acquired that does all of the face filters for Instagram and Facebook is a company called MSQRD. That company went through my accelerator, and that was what gave me kind of early exposure to AR and immersive technologies. Facebook acquired that company right after they went through Tech Minsk. And then after that, I was an early team member, first biz dev at a company called TopTal, which is a global talent marketplace backed by Andreessen Horowitz. Learned a lot about growing and scaling and being experimental. And a very valuable experience for me to be there. And then after that, about 6 years ago, started Rogue Initiative Studios, which is a film, television, gaming, and virtual reality studio in Hollywood. My co-founder produced Call of Duty, Modern Warfare series, and Ghost, the video game. And my partner is Michael Bay, the action director, is known for Transformers, The Island, Armageddon, Pearl Harbor, Bad Boys. And at Rogue Initiative, what we do is build new franchises from the ground up: feature film, television, gaming, immersive entertainment. We're working on a big Michael Bay property right now for a feature film and a game. And the point of telling you all that is that's how I got into AR and VR. So Rogue Initiative, again, is backed by many of the top AR and VR venture capital funds in Silicon Valley and globally. So I'd come from that industry. And what happened was, about 6 years ago, Pokemon Go came out, became this huge hit, as you all know. A lot of people don't know, but it was the fastest growing company in history to hit $1 billion in revenue. It's also been doing extremely well. It's company's called Niantic, as you might know. Yep. And back then we thought to ourselves, if we can't build the next Pokemon Go, what if we could build a world? What if we could build a place where the next 1,000 Pokemon Go's gets built onto it? And I'm using Pokemon Go as an analogy for adding digital information to the real world. And that was kind of the foundation of our vision, was how do we empower anyone to be able to create, discover, and monetize anything around them, anywhere in the world? And then how do we integrate Web3 into that to enable people to actually own the world around them? And that kind of formed our original vision.
Oh, that's fantastic. And look, we're going to dig into that a little bit. And by the way, Hrish, as we were going to talk about the virtual world, and everyone's got virtual backgrounds, I decided to get a real world background because you mentioned real world utility in the virtual world, and I'm hoping you can help me by the end of this call. You can actually help me with some of the NFTs on this artwork I've got behind me. Yeah. Look, I did want to also dig into some of your other personal aspects, and I want to know how that shaped what you're doing today in the virtual world, because I do think it may be intertwined, and that I'm fascinated by the fact that while you have your company is based in a particular place, you yourself live in a different city and a country every year. Mm-hmm. What drives that for you?
Well, I was working in New York, as I mentioned, about 13 years ago, and I again grew up in the United States. I was born in India, as I mentioned. I traveled a lot growing up, so my parents really loved travel, and my father really loved cultures and people and languages, and that really kind of I guess helped me kind of develop a similar interest. And after going over to Eastern Europe and starting that venture capital fund, I think that gave me this confidence that, if I could do that and I didn't know anyone, first of all, that, I would be fine and be able to do, other things in other markets if I really wanted to. And that also kind of made me question which is that other market I should go to, or where else should I go in the world to live and experience the world. And at about the same time, this was about 9 years ago, came to the realization that maybe I shouldn't, or we shouldn't. And as my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, we have 2 kids. So we, travel around the world with kids. We kind of came to the realization, should we kind of define ourselves by a city? Whenever you ask someone like where they're from, they're going to tell you a city. I'm from New York or something. Some people tell you a neighborhood. They're like, oh, I'm from Brooklyn, and we kind of decided to kind of zoom out and basically, how would we kind of think of ourselves just as very global? And that kind of translated into, why not, instead of just moving to one place, why not live around the world? So instead of living one place and traveling, why not, kind of spend enough time, whatever that means, depending on the location, to really get to know the place, get to know, be a native, get a gym membership, get an apartment, live there, get to know people, go to house parties, those kinds of things. And that was just more of an idea when we started it. And now it's been, 13 years or so that we've been doing it. And, 2009 was when I first went to Ukraine, but that's kind of what's translated to. So we've been living around the world every year, sometimes every 6 months, kind of living in different places. We've lived all over Asia, Europe, US, South America, a lot of places to go, but we've had a really fun ride so far.
Right, and I'm sure it's had an influence in the decisions you've made from a business standpoint as well. But as you started off SuperWorld, and it's obviously you've gone through a journey there. What did you see as the possibilities with the metaverse? And I mean, what is it that you're hoping to? What is it that you think we should expect as people who are not necessarily driving that space, but may have an opportunity to participate? What are the possibilities for us?
Yeah, I mean, again, to drill down on the origin story, I again come from the technology and venture space, and was an early team member at a couple of platforms, to help build Preply and then TopTal. And TopTal is a very global platform for talent. And then at Rogue Initiative, again, building cross-platform entertainment. If you look at a Michael Bay film and you look at a Call of Duty game, those assets are very similar in many ways, right? There's a lot of explosions in a Michael Bay film, almost like a video game in a sense. And the latest Call of Duty games have Hollywood actors in them. I think Kevin Spacey was in one, and there's a lot of, very high level kind of, entertainment aspects of that game that you would see in kind of linear film entertainment. And so, we really came to the realization that interactive entertainment, immersive entertainment, and linear entertainment are becoming one. And the technologies that it takes to build those types of entertainment are in engines like Unity and Unreal and other things. And then, as I mentioned, Pokemon Go really kind of demonstrated that you could put content in real world settings and make that very compelling and make people actually do things. And so, I think the idea of building a spatial computing environment, a 3D environment, that enables people to, again, interact with their surroundings, go to places in the real world and do things. And then the ability to, again, place that type of content, any type of content really, in those places was very compelling. And so, that concept really kind of made us realize back then, this was 5 years ago, that the opportunity to build a virtual world on top of the real world, where people could experience any type of content, AR, VR, MR, WebGL, and to interact with that environment could be very compelling. And then again, Web3, as I mentioned, gave us this, thought that utilizing, NFTs, which again, back in 2017, we launched our NFT platform now about 4 years ago, gave us the idea that, how can we give people these programmatic assets that and build a world comprised of them on the virtual real estate side, and or literally any aspect of what we're doing, is give people that authenticity of ownership, transferability, all the benefits of Web3. If life is non-fungible, which often is a way of thinking about non-fungibility, you could build a non-fungible tokenized world around you. And that was, again, part of that big idea.
And it's look, I think I've had the privilege of having these conversations with you, Hrish, and I think it's really helpful for the audience to hear that from you firsthand. If I could just kind of drill into the fact that obviously 4 years you've come through a certain journey and you've come to this point, and those would have been very early days when it would have been really hard for you to actually explain the terminology to people that you spoke to, right? How did you overcome that?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm in Austin right now. Just flew in yesterday to speak at University of Texas Business School, and we had, I'd lived here, part of the nomadic journey, about 4 years ago. And when we had just launched our virtual real estate platform, I don't think 4 years ago the UT Business School would invite me to come and speak. Probably thought I was crazy back then. There were a few people that understood what we were doing. Stephen Wolfram was one of them, which gave me a lot of confidence. He being a prolific AI and computer scientist who joined our advisory board back then. But most people, and I would say even some people in crypto, didn't completely kind of grasp what we were trying to do. And I think the common feedback from VCs, and I come from the VC world as myself as being a VC, the feedback I got from a lot of VCs back then were, aren't you putting together too many technologies here? You got AR, VR, and blockchain, and the spatial environment, and you want to create and allow people to create NFTs. It just sounds like there's just a lot going on. And lo and behold, a few years later, it's called the Metaverse when you do that. And it's a smart idea. So, I think, like anything else, and I think in other industries as well, you think of companies like Airbnb and others where the idea, sounds like a game or sounds a little off the wall, but over time becomes, understood. And for us, or myself back then, for me, it was something that we really believed in. It seemed really obvious to us about the evolution in the market from what I had seen in the entertainment space. And so we kept going forward. I think the thing that really inspired me early on was what I saw from users in terms of engagement. They were very excited. They were very galvanized about what we were doing, and they were spending money on the platform even very early, and have continued to do that in a very engaged fashion. So, again, seeing that type of behavior kind of helped me understand that there was a real potential here and that needed to be further explored as well as further understood. And so it's been a process of helping to explain what we're doing, helping to explain some of these concepts. And as everyone knows, the NFT space really exploded last year in 2021 and really made that job easier. So back in 2018 or 2017, if I said the word NFT, people would just kind of shut down. It was a hard concept to really talk about. But in 2021, it somehow became a cool word, the word that you can say and actually gets you into a lot of different circles, because a lot of people want to know and get into NFTs, which I'd never expected it to become cool. So that's it's interesting how things happen in life and evolve.
No, absolutely, I agree, and I think this is the reason I asked this is, obviously understanding more about the metaverse and where it's going. But I think as a founder and as an entrepreneur, we often come to points where we have things in our minds and we have to articulate it and we have to discuss that to actually take it to the next opportunity, whether it's with investors or potential customers. And sometimes, if you're treading the uncharted path, the unbeaten path, it's always a bit harder to get there across. So, Hrish, I did want to ask, where do you actually see this going in the next 5 years? And what would it need for people to succeed, and what would it take for common folk like us to kind of participate in this?
Yeah. So yeah, and I think I may have missed the very final segment of what you said, but I think I got the gist of it. So if I leave anything out, let me know. But where I see this going in the next 3 to 5 years is again to kind of highlight some of the trends that we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years. It's really been a combination of the software that's really evolved on the augmented reality side with ARKit and AR Core from Apple and Google, AR cloud investments for the major technology companies, kind of building the tools that enable developers like us to really create experiences. Apple and Google and Niantic and Snap and others have really invested, billions of dollars to kind of enable a lot of the ecosystem on the software side. On the hardware side, with mobile technology, with LiDAR kind of becoming mainstream in any mobile device where you can literally scan an environment around you and create 3D content. So the democratization of content creation on the 3D side is already here, which is exciting. You have 5G technologies that's enabled us to really have the capability to interact and download these types of experiences right to your mobile phone or to your desktop or laptop. And then, I think over the last couple of years, we've really seen, due to COVID, all of us becoming very comfortable with being more virtual in some ways, and in some ways preferring, the ability to leverage virtuality like we all are doing on this call, to be able to take advantage of not having to travel or be in the same room and having a compelling experience. And so I think over the next 3 to 5 years, all of those things, all of those technologies in those same ways are going to improve. So you're going to get faster processing speeds. You're going to get, eyewear, headwear. You're gonna see AR headsets come into market. You've seen that progression on the VR side with investments that Oculus has made, and going from the first Oculus to the Oculus Quest 2, and that's only going to get better. And you see, Meta make a lot of announcements around that. I think what we're going to see is, back to your second question, is how we're all as users, customers, people in our daily lives going to interact with some of these technologies. I think that just kind of drilling down on some of the things that are happening in this space, I think that some of the exact technology is going to be abstracted away. So you're going to be interacting with NFTs as an example, maybe in ticketing or maybe in some enterprise function in your life, but you're not going to necessarily know that you're using these technologies, but they're going to, slowly kind of integrate into our lives. And we're doing a lot of that at SuperWorld, which I can touch on, but you're going to be, part of a DAO, because you're going to see it as an opportunity to, acquire some assets of some sort, or be able to kind of very digitally be a part of a, quote unquote kind of corporation using those technologies technologies. But I think the thing that's really going to grab people, and this is what we're focused on at SuperWorld, is how are these technologies, how is the metaverse going to bring real world utility in our lives? How is it going to enable governments like Singapore to provide services to its citizenry? How is it going to enable, companies that are in, the entertainment space, the education space, all across living and working and playing? How are we going to start interacting with AR and VR and blockchain and AI in a spatial environment? I think a lot of those technologies are going to come to us in places that we interact already, but they're going to add value. Real world utility is what I like to say, which is going to really bring this to the mainstream. And that's what we're working on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, I think there are already quite a few sort of emerging enterprise use cases as well. And maybe if we have time, we might touch on that in a bit. But I just wanted to, I guess my next question to you would be, we talk about non-fungibility, and I wanted to see if you could help us understand the difference between the various different virtual worlds. So, for example, if I look at Sandbox or Decentraland, how do we differentiate? And is it going to be a race where there will be one or two dominant winners? Just the way we had with the search engines. Is that where you see it heading?
Yeah. So, I think that there are in the virtual world space, centralized worlds like Fortnite and Roblox and Minecraft that have really proven out the fact that, there are real businesses here to be built. And when you're building a virtual environment, there's lots of ways to monetize because you're bringing people together into this, either WebGL or spatial type environment. And you're able to, create lots of different mechanisms there and really create community in a very powerful way. The benefit of a more open, decentralized metaverse really adds a lot of advantages to what we've seen previously. And those advantages are very specifically that people can now, utilizing Web3, have ownership of the time and the resources they're spending in these virtual worlds. So if we all assume that we're going to be spending a lot more time in a virtual environment, or we might prefer to, the fact that you can build a world where people can take control of those assets and take those assets across virtual worlds is a very compelling opportunity, and really justifies potentially some of the time that they're spending in these environments, just like we spend time in the real world, going outside and transacting and building businesses around us in our communities. We're doing it because we know that we're kind of building a life for ourselves. And, I think Web3 really kind of provides that. Now, to drill down further into your question, there are other virtual worlds out there, Sandbox, Decentraland, there's many, there's lots and lots of new ones coming up. And, each one of them is a community. And each one of them has slightly different kinds of rules and frameworks for how one would get involved in those communities. Sandbox and Decentraland are totally virtual environments, so they don't exist in the real world. The big difference in SuperWorld is SuperWorld is mapped on top of the real world. SuperWorld's all around us. It's, we're in it right now. We're all in it. We've divided the surface of the earth into 64 billion properties of land. And our philosophy again is again providing real world utility and providing a gateway to the metaverse. But to be clear, we're very open about all of these other worlds and communities. We kind of want to be a gateway to those other virtual worlds. The founder of Sandbox is an investor in SuperWorld. We're very close to Animoca, which is a company that's done really amazing things in this space to help, build and support a lot of what's happening in literally every corner of the Web3 space as it relates to virtual worlds and the metaverse. And we're very close to Animoca as well. And so the point is that, I think the differentiation here, at least as it comes to SuperWorld, is we're trying to be that hub where, the mainstream user might not know what AR is or VR is or NFTs or Web3 or how does this even have to do with their life. But they do know where they live, they know where they have a business, they know where they like going on vacation. And what we say is, if you understand our long-term vision, get a wallet, get some ether in there, get some crypto, go and buy the places in the world that you love in SuperWorld, and then you'll be able to then be able to further experiment with AR, VR, creating NFTs, getting into DeFi, getting into crypto, getting into other virtual worlds. And so I would say the differentiation as we see it, at least in terms of what I've just explained, is that we're enabling the mainstream audience to get into this space and then travel to these other areas of interest. And I would say our kind of focus again, and it might sound ironic, but we're building a virtual world that's the focus of that is to keep people in the real world, is to enhance people's real lives. And also our big mission is how can we leverage all these technologies to really enhance humanity? How can we create positivity in the world? As an example of that, when you buy land in SuperWorld, we plant trees in the real world. We're partnered with the World Bank in the Caribbean to help, with hurricane disaster relief. We're partnered with UNESCO and the United Nations to help rebuild cities like what happened in Beirut, Lebanon. In fact, a month ago, we brought together 2 tribes in the Amazon jungle to create digital art in the Amazon, viewable from anywhere, to help people understand the issues that are happening with reforestation. And so the idea is that, this technology can really help, help us all kind of in our own communities and at the world at large, I think really add a lot of very positive things to the real world. And so that's our mission as well, is to build a better world.
Great. And it's an opportunity for folks like us to participate and try and get into some of the real estate that we haven't been able to get into in the real world. Although there's quite a few people on this call who don't have that problem, they can get in just about anywhere. But I did want to. I realized that we've almost come to about 40 minutes, and I wanted to make sure that we have enough time for people to ask questions. And I know that Swapnindu's got a question for you as well. I did want to ask. Just one more question, I guess, and I've got a lot of questions, Hrish, but I'm sure I can pick those up one-on-one, but we can, and if anyone has questions, I'm sure you'd be happy to take them on later. I mean, we'll drop you a note, but I just wanted the last question I wanted to ask was, with this moving so rapidly, and so, including some of the terminologies that we hadn't heard of, like you said 4 years ago when you started, what does the future of talent look like? In the metaverse, and what's it going to take for entrepreneurs or companies to succeed? So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there has, been amazing work done around the concept of play to earn, which I think most of us have heard about, which is just simply, being able to interact in a video game type environment, earn crypto for, taking certain actions. We have a term that we've coined called live to earn at SuperWorld, which is, again, with our focus on real world activity, the question is, how can we utilize tokenomics to incentivize real world behavior? How can we enable people to pursue their passions in the real world, in the analog physical world, and utilize these mechanisms to benefit people so they can do things that they love or interact with brands and engage with companies that they want to in a very permissioned way. And so on the talent side, I think we're already seeing the opportunity for people to work together more virtually. But I think the metaverse and these environments give people this opportunity to add not only the ability to work with anyone globally, as we already have with technologies like Zoom calls and Slack and other tools, but additionally kind of be in these kind of simulated, AR, VR, MR type spaces, and utilize tokenomics and NFTs to go direct to customers, go direct to your community, and be able to build businesses, again, where you're not relying on a centralized party to help you transact necessarily, but you're able to again be able to better understand and engage with your customers or your fans or followers, and to build products that utilize these technologies like NFTs that are programmatic, that create very engaging ways to bring those communities together. And you're seeing that even early with, Bored Ape Yacht Club, just these PFPs, profile pictures that have been sold, and Yuga Labs that raised a lot of money last week, and, the interest of, Lego and funds that just invested in Epic Games. So you're seeing a lot of this activity around the potential of not only just Web3, but, virtual worlds that are being created. I think you're on mute.
Okay, sorry. I think I was saying, yeah, absolutely. And we did see, I think, if I'm not wrong, it was the world's most expensive NFT artwork that was purchased by this young guy in Singapore, $75 million. Maybe Supnendu can shed some light on who this guy was and how he got there. But look, this has been a fantastic session. I'm going to open up the floor. I really want to get a few of our charter members in. And just before I do that, I wanted everyone to know that Hrish is also speaking at TiECon Silicon Valley between May 5th to 7th. So if you want to do join TiE Silicon Valley, it is available virtually, and it'd be great to see Hrish there as well. So Sop, over to you.
Well, I'm going to hold that other question back because in the interest of time. But I want to ask an unusual question here, and here is my apologies here, because nothing to do with the main topic here. One thing we're looking at is from a very different angle, the use of energy in the digital space. And there is, by some estimate, by 2025, if we go not the metaverse and the new digital space, the current digital space as it's growing today, by 2025, 20% of world energy will be used by the data centers, which today runs at a 60% efficiency. Almost 40% energy goes west today. With the metaverse coming, with the growth of digital data, I'm pretty sure this particular energy demand will be more than 20%. There's nothing to do crypto, just plain digital growth, and I think metaverse by the design will attract further expansion of digital experience. Where do you see and how do you see we should be able to tackle this challenge, given 2050 is a carbon neutral year for all countries?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I think that it's something that all companies, as you mentioned, it's not just Web3 that you're talking about, but just more the costs related to operating all these servers and bringing us more connectivity around the world. I think that the problem is something that again relates not only to just what we're doing digitally here, but just overall as we are kind of interested in again, in improving the world, stopping climate change, kind of some of these just bigger issues that are a product of what's happening in the examples that you gave. So I think that governments really need to come together and tackle some of these issues on the technology side. I think companies need to understand what their footprint is and how they're affecting the environment. And I think we're seeing many companies start to really account for that in their policies, in how they're building infrastructure. And I think over the next 5 to 10, 15 years, on the Web3 side of that equation, with layer 2 protocols and proof of stake coming to Ethereum and other mechanisms there, hopefully that's going to help lessen some of that environmental burden as it comes to blockchain. But again, as you said, it's not just a Web3 problem. So I think that
I think I was trying to figure out whether the Web 3.0, which is there an engineering problem here? If Web 3.0 is indeed going to remove the middle office, which means almost, if you can, by my guess, almost half of the energy consumption on the digital space is actually middle office processing. If that goes away, does it offset some of the new digital growth?
It's a good question. I think that there are opportunities to reduce a large number of intermediaries that we currently have to build into any environment due to having the necessity to have trusted third parties involved in transactions. And that will enable us to have lighter infrastructure needs to be able to transact direct very globally. So I think that is a great point, that Web3 does solve some of those issues. But, like anything else, there's always the possibility that other kind of issues also kind of come up. So I think we definitely need to have a very holistic approach to this across not only the technology space, but as governments and larger stakeholders in the world kind of bring these very important issues into part of our everyday kind of fabric of how we live. And I think some of those things are going to be enabled by leveraging technology and leveraging these kind of new ways of interacting with each other in terms of overall energy production and utilization. And some of this is a cultural shift too, which I think is happening, that we're realizing that these problems are very important. And I think when that kind of happens, you have investments made by governments and corporations to further kind of combat some of these problems. So I hope that happens. And again, it's a problem that is evolving, and hopefully we're able to get ahead of it over the next 5 to 10 years. But that's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect any less from Sop. Any other questions that might get us better enlightened?
Yes. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure, please.
Hi, Hrish. This is Prem. I have two questions. Number one, hardware is clearly a big bottleneck when it comes to VR experiences. So in the next 5 years, what is your sense? How far can the hardware really progress? I mean, what is, say, in 5 years, the Quest 2 going to look like, or one of those VR goggles going to look like at its? Question number one. Question number two is, sometimes I feel that Web 3.0 sounds like the open source software revolution. So there is a lot of idealism, there is a lot of radical thought, but the truth is that, let's say today, if we buy NFTs, we do not really interact with blockchain. I mean, between the blockchain server and buying NFTs, there are at least 2-3 layers of intermediaries. And it's quite possible that in due course, these become the big platforms, big global platforms with even more concentration of power in the name of Web 3.0, which to start with was a techno-political construct of sharing power with the people, right? So what do you think on these two topics?
Yeah, so on the hardware side, again, great question. There's, for years now, I would say the last, 4 or 5 years, we've been waiting for an amazing, AR headset to come out from, Apple or Google or, one of the companies in the space that has the potential to really kind of blow our minds with the next level of, headset. In 2019, Qualcomm released their Snapdragon chip, which has really enabled a lot of, the industry to build utilizing it, the type of hardware that we're hoping comes out soon. So, I think that we're now closer to that timeline with some of these companies, spending the last few years acquiring technology and really, being able to leverage the potential of these chips and to integrate into their plans and really create something that at the right price point. I think that's the other really important factor is can they get something out, especially in the consumer market, that is priced right, that's not too cumbersome to utilize, and provides people value. We've seen Oculus on the VR side really improve, I think, dramatically over the past few years. We've seen Ray-Ban and Facebook come together to create hardware that has the audio component. Snap has integrated some of the visual filters and other things into some of their tech already. Unreal, which is Nreal, which has raised quite a bit of money, is showing some interesting use cases on the headset side, and so are others around the world. And so I think over the next 5 years, we're likely going to have a new form factor that these bigger companies that are in the mobile phone space are going to be able to sell to their, premium customers. So it's still going to be at a higher price point, but it's going to be a great accompaniment to a mobile phone and give you access to, AR content, potentially VR content. So you're going to have like this XR, type of headset that you can take out with you in the real world. On the enterprise side with Microsoft HoloLens and Magic Leap and others, there's a variety of use cases of this type of hardware. But I think over the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to really advance for the consumer market. And so we're really excited about that and hope it comes even next year. And then in terms of your second question, it is true that, as we are progressively decentralizing, whether, you're talking about NFTs or you're talking about storage or, a variety of the features and functions that we're incorporating at SuperWorld or other, companies are incorporating as we kind of, enable the things that we want to do in a more decentralized environment, we potentially are, creating other companies to process all of these things in a more centralized way. I think that over time, as blockchain technologies advance, as layer 2 protocols make transaction speeds improve, make things a lot more frictionless in terms of gas fees as we move to proof of stake. I hope that some of these problems will be solved. So we will be able to take that vision of decentralization and really kind of tap its full potential. But I do see potentially your question and your assertion that maybe to get there, we might have to build more centralized infrastructure.
Yes. Especially when you're trying to evolve rapidly.
Yeah.
It is difficult to do it in a very, very decentralized political structure, right? You need.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Definitely.
Thank you for your.
No, thanks for that question. I think Ramesh has a question. Ramesh from Pune.
Yeah. So Hrish, we talked about the climate change issues, and I really want to talk about the societal impact of the work that you're doing. It appeared to me, I'm not a technologist anymore. I just look at it from outside, and it appeared to me that all of this work about NFTs, Metaverse, kind of addresses the 5% of the world problem. The people, those entertainment needs and so on, and completely ignores what we perhaps might be directing our best of our brains and energy to solve the problem of the 95% of the world population. That's probably still struggling for food, shelter, basic needs. Where is this whole effort headed for? Is it, and this is coming in the context of Black Lives Matter, inequity around the world. Is this effort really headed in the right direction for the world?
I think that's a very valid point. When you think about NFTs, you think about someone spending $69 million on a JPEG piece of art, or people collecting Bored Apes, these drawings and joining some kind of social club, and companies in this space raising millions of dollars on some of these ideas that might seem kind of frivolous. And I think that ultimately what we are talking about here are kind of the development and utilization of technologies. Currently, a lot of the use cases are definitely centered around gaming and entertainment. Just because on the consumer side, those are kind of the areas where, there is a lot of interest and utilization. These technologies, again, enables people to finally have kind of an ownership of a lot of the activity that's happening in this space, whether you're talking about a virtual world or you're talking about a piece of digital art. However, I think behind the scenes, the companies that are building in this space, especially those companies that are utilizing this technology in more enterprise functions, are leveraging this technology and likely abstracting away the tech itself, and really, again, building real life utility. At least that's what we're concerned about at SuperWorld, which is, how can we leverage an NFT to give someone the ability to buy something in the physical world, or to have authenticity of ownership or membership, or, be able to transact globally without friction, using a coin or a token, and to be able to, again, solve problems in the real world. And there's a lot of them to be solved, as you astutely stated. And so I think that it's easy to kind of see the news and to think that Web3 is utilized for entertainment, or more kind of social fun kind of reasons, which is true. That's what's in the news, and that's what grabs the headlines. But I think the longer term trend here is we're going to start seeing these technologies used and brought to our daily lives, but likely abstracted away. So we're going to get the benefits of, utilizing NFT technology when we interface with the government. I mean, already Barbados is building an embassy in SuperWorld, right? And that is their plan, is to utilize NFTs, to utilize immersive technology to expand the services that they're providing to their citizenry around the world. And it's less about, hey, this is an NFT, or we're utilizing AR and VR. Some of that stuff gives them this kind of leadership on the global level, that they're kind of being very tech forward. But ultimately, I think what they're looking for is how can they add value in a way where, as a country in their situation, that may not want to spend the resources to build physical infrastructure in cities around the world that they wouldn't be able to afford to do. Maybe they can, utilize Web3 as a way of, allowing them to benefit from this technology and provide a very compelling value proposition to their citizenry at a much lower price point than if they would have to build physically or to operate in a centralized system. And so I'm very hopeful and excited about that proposition. But I think it's a great point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And thanks for that question, Ramesh. And I think that was a great note to end on. I am conscious that we're over a minute beyond the hour. So I do genuinely believe, Hrish, that technology can solve a lot of problems. And I think we hopefully will find ways to navigate our entrepreneurial sort of zeal more in the direction that will solve some of the problems that Ramesh is talking about. I genuinely believe, I think with the metaverse, we should be able to solve problems around education, problems around enhancing employment opportunities for people, and be able to get them to adapt better employment opportunities with the same degrees that they have, but be able to adapt new skills which they can apply with that virtual physical alignment. But look, this has been a great session. I've really found it valuable. For those of you who are interested, again, Hrish he is speaking at TiE Silicon Valley, the TiECon Silicon Valley event, which is one of TiE's premier events. That's from the May 5th to the 7th. So good luck for that, Hrish. Any last parting words that you have for the audience?
Well, one thing I would say is, in reference to what we're doing at SuperWorld, our vision is, again, to bring people together to build this virtual spatial environment that's focused on the real world and our real lives. And, for us to do that really takes all of us. And that's the point is, by getting involved in the platform, either as buying a real estate or building or creating NFTs or, creating content, what we want to do is kind of very collectively build out what we're trying to accomplish. And so if there are people in the audience that kind of want to better understand this mission, want to get on board our mission, again, we're leveraging this technology to empower people and to, enhance the real world and to build a better world, would love your help. So, I really love these questions. I really, love being part of the TiE community. Would love your help. So, definitely feel free to reach out. And I'm always, we're very open, and at SuperWorld, love to partner with all of you and to build a better world together. So I appreciate the opportunity to, talk today and to tell our story, and look forward to being in touch with all of you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And there was one last question Ramesh had around a book that he could read, or we could read rather. If you have any pointers, if you want to think about it, Hrish, you could drop me a note and I'll share it, or you could share now.
Yeah, I mean, there's so the beauty of this space is that it touches a lot of technologies, from immersive technologies to Web3 and AI. There's an essay or a group of essays written by Matthew Ball, M-A-T-H, Matthew's first name, Ball, B-A-L-L is the last name. You can Google that, Matthew Ball Metaverse. They are really great. It really kind of go through a lot of the technology and even social aspects of the opportunity here. So I would start there, and definitely feel free to reach out to me, and happy to, help guide you to other resources, whether it's, more specific to any of those technologies. But that's a great kind of comprehensive kind of resource.
Amit, before we call it a day, or a night, I was looking at recent stats of the latest top engineering talent, where they're heading to. They're all heading to Web 3.0. So there's a disproportionate allocation of very talented resources to Web 3.0. To Ramesh's question, where do we go with this? So that's the parting comment.
Well, is that for Hrish?
No, Ramesh.
Yeah, I think
you're absolutely right, and that was my question. I think the fact is that we don't have the all of the talent in the world, and I think we have a very disproportionate amount of talent today working on these new technologies, where there is so much of uncertainty as to what kind of real world problems do they solve for a larger section of the society.
Yeah, no, look, I think that's the case with a lot of these emerging tech areas, right? You see, at the moment,
it's good news. Maybe it's good news. So it may be good news because they will solve a lot of problems, but we got to see that.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that folks like you, Supnindu, are going to help us shape this for the future and figure out what we should be thinking of, because we have to go from solving the consumer aspect of it to the real enterprise world problems, right? And I think, to be fair, I think Supnindu, I think you are in that ecosystem. You are trying to shape some of that thinking around that, and maybe we need to have a session around Hrish sharing where the future is going, and Sop, you sharing where what we could be doing to get to the point where Ramesh is talking about.
Sure.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, and sorry that we ran 7 minutes over, but I thought this was really good. I think great comments from Ramesh and Supnindu, and of course, Hrish, thanks for your time. And see you at TiECon Silicon Valley.